In this video, we'll be looking at the surface area of prisms and the volume of prisms. So we'll start with this rectangular prism. Very familiar shape. And from earlier grades, you know that there are 3 dimensions. And we can measure those dimensions in units. We have a length of 4 units, a width of 3 units, and a height of 3 units. So those are our dimensions. Now, the volume of the figure is the number of cubes that fill this figure. And we could actually count the cubes, couldn't we? Now, that gets very time-consuming, and over time, as you know from earlier grades, that we saw a pattern, and we understood that to find the volume of a rectangular prism, we could multiply the length times the width times the height. So 4 times 3 is 12, times 3 is 36 cubic units, and that is the volume. That is the number of cubes that make up this particular rectangular prism. But there is another way of finding the volume of any prism, which I want to point out, and this is the way that I think, I like to think of this as the sense-making way, so I don't have to remember a formula. The only thing I need to know to find the volume of a prism is to find the area of its base, multiply that by the height. And so when you look at the base of this prism, I'm looking at the face that it's kind of sitting on, where the length and the width are 4 and 3. So the area of the base would be 12 square units times the height of 3 units, giving us a volume of 36 cubic units. So I am going to be finding the volume of prisms by measuring the area of the base, determining that, and multiplying it by the height. All right, so now let's talk about surface area. Surface area, you'll remember, is the number of square units needed to cover a figure. And so I like to think of this like if I were covering this, if this were a gift and I were putting wrapping paper on it, how much paper I would need to exactly cover the figure. And what we do to find the surface area is we find the area of each face. Now, convenient in a rectangular prism, there are 6 faces, and 2 of them are always going to be congruent, that is the top and the bottom. There'll be a left and a right face that will be congruent, and the front and the back face. So that's how we're going to figure out. We'll do the bottom face and the top face, and the area of those are 12 and 12. We have the left and the right faces. The area of those are 9 and 9. And then we have the front face and the back face, whose areas are also 12 and 12. When we add these together, we get 66 square units for the surface area of this rectangular prism. All right, so I want to take what we just did with rectangular prisms and move on to looking at the volume and surface area of a triangular prism, this one right here. And now recall, we call this a prism because there are 2 parallel congruent faces, which are, in this case, in the shape of triangles. And the distance between those bases, those triangular bases, is 6. That's the height of this prism. And so the dimensions, when we think about dimensions of a prism, we're going to need the area of the base in square units, and then the height of the figure in units. So what I want to do is look at that triangle now. I want to look at that triangular base, and I want to recall that the area of a triangle, the formula, right, to find the area of the base, the formula is going to be 1/2 of the base of the triangle times the height of the triangle. So the base of this triangle is 8 units, the height is 3 units. And when I do half of 8 times 3, I could do half of 24, which is 12. I could also do half of 8, which is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. In any event, the area of this base is 12 square units. Now that I know the area of the base, I can find the volume of this triangular prism by multiplying the area, which is 12 square units, by the height of 6 units. The volume of this triangular prism is 72 cubic units. Again, how did I get that? I find the area of the base of the prism, multiply it by the height. All right, let's move on to surface area. The surface area is going to be, once again, the sum of the area of the faces of a figure. In this case, there are 5 faces, right? What are the 5 faces? Well, there's a top and a bottom face. They have the same area because they're congruent. There's a left face and a right face. And in this case, there's a front face that I'm looking at. And the front face that I'm looking directly at is dimensions 8 by 6. So let's list out those 5 faces. There's the bottom face and the top face. Those are congruent. Those are the bases. The front face. There's the left and the right face. All right. So what about the area of the bottom face and the top face? Well, we already know that that's 12. So 12 plus 12. The area of the front face is going to be 8 by 6, which is 48. And now you have to look at the figure to get the area of the left face and the right face. I can see that it's going to be a rectangle. The dimensions of that rectangle are going to be 5 by 6. So we're talking about 30 and 30. So when I add these together, 12 plus 12 plus the 48 plus 30 and 30 more, I have a surface area of 132 square inches or square units.